Welcome to the Building Materials Sales and Marketing Podcast, presented by Mark Mitchell, a sales and marketing consultant who specializes in helping building materials companies overcome difficult sales problems. Mark is the author of the book Building Materials Channel Marketing and a frequent speaker at industry events.
Hello, this is Mark Mitchell from Wizard Strategy. I hope you're having a great week. Today, I'd like to talk to you about why there's never been a better time, I think, in the history of building materials to grow the sales of your products. We live in an industry that has traditionally been stubborn, stuck, follows tradition. This is how I've done things forever. I always use this product. I always do it this way. I haven't had any problems, so I really don't see any reason why I should try something different, a new product, a different way of doing something. Things are going just fine. This has further been complicated when the economy is good, in which there is plenty of work for people. They further say there's no reason to change. I have all the work that I can handle today, doing what I've done. So the last thing I need is to change something. We've also faced a problem where a new idea or a change is viewed more from the standpoint of it will be a hassle. It will require extra time to learn how to use the product or work with the product, design with the product, install the product, source the product. So new things are not met with the enthusiasm that they are, in many other areas of our lives or in many other industries. Building materials kind of views any new idea as something to be viewed with skepticism and to look and say, this is going to involve risk and hassle and extra time that I don't have, and I don't see where there's a big upside to going with something new. One of the other challenges it's always been in the building materials industry in trying to get a new product adopted or a new customer to use your existing product is that most of the time, the building material company, I find, the message they use to try to sell it is the benefit that is more affecting your customer's customer than it is affecting them. So if you're trying to sell a builder on using your product, when you start talking about how the homeowner is going to save more energy, the builder really doesn't care that much about it. He thinks he's building a fine, energy-efficient home. It meets building codes. He's not having any complaints. He's not losing any sales. And so that message doesn't work very well. The same thing when you're talking to a contractor and you're giving them benefits that have to do with the end user. Someone who's going to, a benefit that they may not realize for 5 or 10 years after the product has been installed, that doesn't have a lot of meaning to them. And the same thing even with an architect, in which an architect, when you talk about how the owner or the occupant of the building is going to benefit from it, that's nice to hear, that's nice to have, but that doesn't really help me and what my challenge is today in terms of how I have to design a building that meets the builder's needs within a certain budget. So in the past, there's been this problem with having a great product with a great benefit, but the benefit is for your customer's customer, not for your customer. But now that's changing. And the other thing that's changing is the pace of change. So when we look back at, we'll say, when DuPont tried to introduce Tyvek and had this idea about, wouldn't it make sense to wrap houses in a material that would block air and moisture intrusion, but allow water vapor to escape? Wouldn't that make for a better building? Wouldn't that make for a more comfortable building? Wouldn't that save energy? And seems like a simple thing, just wrap the building in some paper. But, it took them probably 20 years in order before the use of a house wrap was a standard building practice, let alone making it a requirement in codes. Then along comes James Hardie with this product called fiber cement siding, which initially the vinyl siding industry looked at and laughed at it and thought this is never going to work. This is never going to succeed. We don't have to worry about this. And well, it took them we'll say 10 years, half the time that it took Tyvek in order to become a very accepted product in construction. And then recently along comes this company, Huber Engineered Woods, with a product called Zip System. And it seems to me like it took maybe 4 years till all of a sudden every city I go to, I see green on the outside of buildings. And so you look at now, people are accepting things faster than they ever have before. The other big benefit to you, if you're looking to grow the sales of your product by, let's say, getting people that have never used your product to use it. The other big change that's happened is the disruption in the industry, in which now the focus has moved away from how do I buy the cheapest product I can that will enable me to meet building code. It now has shifted to how do I reduce waste and inefficiency in the way I design and build buildings and source materials. And a way to think about this is that, the construction industry is, I think, the only industry that has not seen improvements in productivity over the last 50 years. In fact, I think I read somewhere that we've actually declined in productivity. But you think about every other industry, whether it is food production or automobiles or cell phones or wireless services, flat screen TVs, every industry, the airlines, every industry you can think about, hotels, has experienced dramatic improvements in productivity by focusing on reducing waste and inefficiency. Every industry, that is, except for building materials. And no matter who you have been in the past, that you could be Turner Construction, you could be the Mayo Clinic, you could be a large, owner of buildings. And you've kind of just rolled your eyes back and said, I know the way we do this makes no sense, but this is the way it is. And even I am not big enough or powerful enough to change this. So what we have now are buildings that cost 20 to 30% more than they should. Remodeling or retrofit repair projects also costing, we'll say at least 20% more than they should, all because we've never stepped back and said, what's the process that we follow and where are the inefficiencies in here and how do we get rid of them? We just accept how long it takes to install, that on one job we can do something with 3 days of labor and a week later it takes 5 days of labor. Oh, well, that's just the way it is. No one in the industry thinks that way. When you think about when you bought your first flat screen television, and I don't know about you, but got in trouble with your wife over how much money you spent. And then you think about how much to go out and buy a flat screen TV today costs. The savings is amazing. And that's what's happening in every other industry except building materials. But now that is changing. And I believe that is changing because of Wall Street seeing this being the building materials and construction industry as being a great place to invest money right now, because it is the one industry that if they can invest in companies who can improve the productivity of the industry, they look to make huge profits. And so when they've looked all around the world at all the places they can invest all their money, do we buy gold? Do we buy stock in McDonald's or Apple or General Motors, or what do we invest in? They're looking and saying, wow, the real opportunity here is in the area of building materials and construction. Like how we design buildings, how we source the materials, how we build buildings, all is just full of tremendous amounts of waste and inefficiency. So the companies, they're betting on that they can change that. And if they change that they will have a big win. Now, probably the best example of this is Katerra, that I've talked about and written about before. But if you're not familiar with them, I encourage you to find their website, read up about them, read articles about them, read what I've written about them. And it's not that Katerra is going to be single-handedly change the world or be the General Motors of construction or something. But Katerra, I believe, is what things are rallying around and really kind of a leading force that's going to force change in all areas of construction. And the simplest example I can give you is one. So if you're a home builder and you build $600,000 homes, and any home builder that I know, if I ask them, who is your competition, they can tell me in this market, in this city, there's these two other builders that if the buyer buys a home but doesn't buy mine, they will probably buy one of those two other builders. And they will then tell me that if they put a blindfold on me and took me into each of the three different building companies' homes, once I'm inside, it would be hard-pressed to tell the difference between the homes because they all have granite countertops, fireplaces, so many bedrooms, so many square feet, certain quality of windows or plumbing fixtures. That's just kind of the benchmark of a $600,000 home. Now, in order to build that home, it costs them $550,000, we'll say. So they hope to sell it at $600,000 and make a $50,000 profit. Now along comes one of those three builders, decides to start working with a company like Katerra or Integra or a number of other companies that are getting going in this business. And those companies say, let us build the home for you. And we will build you that same. When you're done, you will have a home that it looks the same as the $600,000 home, has all the same features. It's actually built better, but your cost now just went from $550,000 down to $500,000, in part because of efficiencies of construction, reduction in waste. There's some overhead that you can now, Mr. Builder, get rid of. So you can really focus on being on selling homes and let us take care of the other stuff. So when you start looking at a builder looking and saying, I realize that if I'm going to stay in business, I need to find ways to be more productive, reduce waste and inefficiency. I can't do it by just negotiating cheaper prices on 2x4s or builder grade shingles or cheapening things up. I need to really rethink everything. So even if I continue to want to be a site builder, I'm going to be looking for different aspects of how I do things, and I'm going to be looking at them from a standpoint of a system or a process, not an individual product. And the same thing happens in commercial. So if I'm building a hotel, the most important thing for me is how soon can that hotel be done so that I can start having people bring out their American Express cards and pay me to stay in my hotel so I can start generating income and stop paying interest payments on construction loans. So if it took 12 months to build a hotel following architectural specification process, and it took, we'll say, 10 months to do it using design build, well, now maybe it's going to take 7 months or less using an offsite builder, panelized modular construction processes. And so that owner now is going to reduce his costs and get in the building faster and start making money and reducing his expenses. So the industry sees these things changing. Whenever I write about this, I get a lot of readership. I can look at my web traffic goes up, and I get a lot of comments. I get comments both positive, and I get comments about people telling me that this is not going to work. They build crappy products, and as soon as the next recession comes, they'll be out of business. Fear not, nothing's going to change. I disagree with those people, but this is still an issue that gets a lot of conversation going and a lot of passion on both sides. But whatever you believe, you cannot go wrong by sitting down with a builder, a contractor, an architect, an owner-developer, a facilities manager, and talking to them about how they can do things smarter, how they can lower their costs by reducing waste and inefficiency, and how your product can help them do that. So you're going to need to first step back and look and say, how can our product help somebody reduce waste and inefficiency? Does it require less labor? to install. I think that's a big reason that we've seen the success with a zip system is to the builder. They can just look and say, wow, one time around the house instead of twice. This makes perfect sense. You don't need to tell me anymore. Okay. And so think about how your product can help one of those customers to be more successful, to reduce waste and inefficiency. Perhaps they can, differentiate themselves. Perhaps it helps them get more business. Perhaps it's easier to design or install. Perhaps has fewer callbacks. It is amazing to me how I'm starting to see particularly contractors who traditionally look at what is the cheapest material, many cases, that I can use. And then they're only focused on this product cost $8 and a better product costs $10. I keep using the $8 product, even though the $8 product, maybe my installers have to be better trained to use it. Maybe it takes longer to install. Maybe it's more likely to have a problem, which is going to require a callback where I will lose all my profit on that job. Or I will certainly now have a customer who thinks that, wow, you had to come back and fix this. I have an unhappy homeowner. That's not good. We're looking for zero of that, not a few of that. And I'm seeing contractors starting to split between what I'll call smarter contractors who are thinking about the future and, old school contractors who are just going to keep doing things the way they do. And I'm seeing the smarter ones starting to say, maybe the $10 product is actually a smarter buy for me. Maybe the $10 product, I can do more jobs per week with the same crew. Maybe the $10 product, I have fewer callbacks. And maybe, it only takes perhaps, one problem for every 10 jobs to really be very costly to me. I see builders, contractors, architects, owners, facilities managers, all starting to step back and take a fresh look at their approach. So this is your real opportunity right now, is to rethink your product, rethink how your product can help them reduce waste and inefficiency. Is it more likely that they install it once and not have to go back again? Is half as many people can install it? Is it easier to design? Is it easier to source? Is it easier to deliver to a job site? Perhaps you want to sit and think about, what does your product interact with? In other words, windows need flashing, perhaps looking at partnering with some flashing companies. There's, many different ways to do it. Are there changes that you could make to your product that would make it even more helpful to the customer? So your customers right now are looking for help and guidance here. Most building material companies are still stuck with the same old reasons, like customer only wants to buy it if it's cheaper. Let me tell you why you should buy this product, and it will help the person that's going to be living in the home, and that's not you. So in other words, the wrong message. And so it's step back and take a fresh look at your customer, and their challenges today, and take a fresh look at how you might reframe your sales message to those customers. You either have a really tough customer, or you've got one of those products that's just never achieved a level of success that that it should have. Now is the time. The window of opportunity is open because the customers are actively looking for better ways to do things. And I think the real key is to think about stepping back and use that word process. So think about, what is the process of designing the building, and how can either your product or dealing with your company help make that go smoother? One of the things you're going to start seeing developers and builders and contractors and so forth start to look at is, how many days does it take to build a building, and what is the cost for each of those days? So how much more does it cost me if it takes me 3 more days? And how much benefit is there, or profit to me, or reduced expenses, if I get the building built 1, 2, and 3 days faster? So you're going to see more people really measuring, have expectations about, this building will be done in 90 days. Not 95, not 110, not too bad because we had some bad weather, 90 days. And then they're going to start looking and saying, okay, now we've tightened it. Now we can go to 89 and 88. Then they're going to start going, okay, how can we save an hour? How can we save 2 hours? How can we save 15 minutes? So this is the direction that the industry is going to be going. So you need to be looking at, how does either your product or dealing with your company and the services and support you can provide help them to be more productive. So I think that's the big message I want to leave you with in this podcast is the idea that there has never been a better time to grow the sales of your building materials. The acceptance, the pace of change has never been happening faster than it is today. And 2, the customers now are proactively looking for solutions to their problems. And those solutions are their problems, not their customers' problems. So their customer's problem may be lower their fuel bill. My problem is how do I get buildings built faster, better, something more desirable, those types of issues. So if you step back and reframe things and take a fresh look at it, there's never been a better time right now than to go out and really make some things happen for your company and your products. So I hope I've given you a little kick in the butt and inspiration today. Go out and make some things happen. If you feel that your company would benefit from a more in-depth thinking about how to reposition your product and how to turn sales around or get growing, take advantage of this, please contact me and we'll talk about how I can help you. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you for listening to this podcast from Mark Mitchell on building materials, sales, and marketing. We hope he gave you some fresh perspectives on how to grow your sales and will listen to future episodes.